Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. My name is Sean Martin and I'm the planning manager at Stonebond, which is a family-run house builder based in Chelmsford that specialises in delivering affordable housing. I am here today to assure you of our commitment to deliver the quality development in your authority and confirm that we fully intend to implement this permission as soon as you grant the necessary consents. The application before you is the culmination of 4 years of collaborative work with Countryside and Chelmsford City Council. I'm acutely aware of the little time I have to address this committee in relation to this important application, and I will now list the public and community benefits that this application will offer. 55 new affordable homes, providing 249 bed spaces, helping to alleviate the much publicised housing crisis in Chelmsford, of which 44% will be affordable rent and 56% will be shared ownership. We are proposing to deliver 23 3- and 4-bed family homes, meeting the greatest identified need. A new pedestrianised crossing along Chelmer Village Way, creating a better connectivity for existing and future residents to the country park. New bus stop and cycleway, creating a better connectivity. 198 new trees, including community orchard, and in excess of 10% biodiversity net gain. Transfer of 78 acres of land to the City Council at no cost, securing the land in public ownership in perpetuity, which will enable the Council's ambition to create a country park. And finally, over £240,000 of 106 contributions towards healthcare and local infrastructure. Your officer has confirmed that the report we have produced scheme is policy compliant, has the full support of the statutory consultees. I therefore respectfully accept your officer's recommendations so that we can start delivering much needed new homes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. David Frost, would you like to speak, please? Again, everybody has 2 minutes.
Well, of course, Madam Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to yourself and the committee this evening. Many won't know me, but I was a councillor for Springfield for 10 years. I served on the planning committee for 10 years, and I was a chairman for 3 years. And I don't normally get involved these days because of age and ill health, but I was very concerned about this planning application coming through. And I spent this afternoon looking at the local observations and compliments. There's 143, which I doubt many of you will have read the total amount. 3 of them were in favour and 140 were against. I can't remember any planning application in front of me that had that degree of local concern. When I sat on this committee, one of the first things I was taught by planning officers was the danger of precedents, justifiable exceptions of policy, they were often called, and I am concerned about that. As we're looking tonight, you are, about this proposed development, and just before you get there, on the other side of the A12, there's a bund along there where the new high-powered gas station or facilities are going to be. So you've got a bund, then you've got the road, then you'll propose to have another bund here. Now, I lived at Prentice's Farm, which is one of the listed buildings referred to in the report, and certain times of the year, when I dug a hole to put a new tree in, which I did quite regularly, it would very often fill up with water.
I'm afraid your time is up, David. Can you come to your conclusion, please?
Yes, there is a danger of precedent here.
Thank you.
Well, let me summarise that in that the other side of the water floodplain is Great Barrow, and the ridgeway coming down to the floodplain. And what you're doing here, if this is agreed, is you're setting a precedent for a bund along that piece of land on the ridgeway up to Barrow. And the
I'm sorry, David, you have to stop. The others will come in with information as well, so thank you very much.
I don't think they will, but there we are. We are what we are.
Thank you. Can we have Russell Ford, please?
Thank you, Chairman. This recommendation is absolutely outrageous. The affordable housing crisis is a national phenomenon, not a local one. There is no quick fix. The solution should be local plan-led, not contrived in this way. Identifying land to meet need in the least environmentally damaging way is a local plan responsibility. Sensitive land with unique qualities should be preserved. The delivery mechanism for the country park should also come through the local plan. This gives the public certainty. The gift of 29 hectares of land unconnected to the development breaks the rules for contributions. It's an inducement designed to encourage the council to act improperly. Your officers have not applied the tests. Is the gift necessary, directly related to the development, reasonably related in scale and kind to the development? None of these are satisfied. The application fails right there. The sequential test area has been contrived to be as small as possible to find no suitable sites to avoid a technical knockout. A strategic need requires a borough-wide strategic search area. The tiny search area used is not fit for purpose. The former construction compound is a red herring. You have reinstatement provisions. Historic England recommends refusal. The concentration of listed buildings, conservation area and green wedge in a 19th century landscape contributes to this conclusion. Need will come and go, but once the setting is gone, it's gone forever. Chelmer Road marks a clear division between urban and rural, modern and historic, dry land and wetland. Let us preserve this for future generations. That is the essence of sustainability. Overall, if you knock out the gift of land and the implausible sequential test, this application is dead in the water, quite literally. I urge you to refuse planning permissions for the issues I've set out. I recommend caution in your voting and a recording of individual votes. We will consider judicial review. Please consider a member's site visit, and if you've not taken in anything I have said, just look at the 3 photographs I sent you of the site underwater.
Can we move on, please, to Mark Wonder?
Thank you, Chairman. No one disputes the need for affordable housing, which is a nationwide problem, but unsuitable, environmentally damaging developments such as this are just not a solution. Key issues with this application: firstly, flood risk. Others will speak about flood risk, but who do you believe? Real life experience of local residents or out-of-date Environment Agency maps? Secondly, harm to the conservation area. The applicants have tried to mitigate the harm caused by misleadingly stating that the site has lost its character and is more in keeping with the Chelmer retail park and by its use as a former temporary construction compound. Those of us who live close to the site know this is just not true. The application site remains a fully integrated part of the Chelmer flood meadows, which a site visit would confirm. Historic England recommend refusal. Thirdly and finally, the original and revised applications are surrounded by secrecy, lack of transparency, unusual practice, and inaccurately assessed information provided by third parties, and will lead at the very least to Phase 2 planning development as lead consultants being referred to the RTPI for breaching their code of practice. Why has the Council, over a period of more than 1 year from the original application, allowed the applicants to continue to meet and have conversations with them instead of the usual practice of refusing the application if not withdrawn? Why has 29 hectares of land, without any obvious link to the proposed site, been gifted in order to introduce a public benefit argument and without satisfying the tests of the Section 106 agreement? Why has a flood risk sequential test been manipulated to cover the smallest possible area, with unusually the responsibility for checking the test left to the Council? What experienced person has vetted this? Why has misleading information been provided to try to show that the site has lost its character as part of the flood meadows and countryside? With these facts considered objectively, Any reasonable person would surely refuse planning permission. I urge you to do the same.
Thank you.
Our watermill is 1 mile from Chelmsford's floodgates and a few hundred yards from the proposed site. We've lived there for 26 years, actively helping to manage the water flow, maximising the pull from Chelmsford and the push towards Sandford Mill downriver. Did you know that the catchment area for the 3 rivers that meet just before the central floodgates is large, 206 square miles? These floodgates were installed in the 60s before the A12 bypass was built, mainly on floodplain, in 86. Today the floodgates flush 3 times more water through them than in 1970. This figure rises every year. Yet the central permeable floodplain is being reduced in size because of development. Flood patterns, high water flows to Sandford Mill and under the A12, and then bottlenecks. It backs up towards our city, over the meads towards Manor Farm, the Army and Navy. This is a 3-day event when it's full. At the same time, the floodplain close to and including the development site fills. It spreads to the river to its south, east towards our sluice gates, west under the Chelmer Bridge and back into the city. Flood pressure here is high due to its centrally linked location, lack of management, ongoing works and development. It can flood after between 8 and 12 hours rainfall. That happened 2 weeks ago. Changing weather patterns. There's not been a 3-day event since major development in the catchment area, but water flow is increasing due to runoff from development concrete. And 2 days and a night's consistent rainfall can now total to around an 80% coverage of the complete floodplain. Let's call this a high water event. There have been 9 3-day events, there have been 9 3-day events since 2000, plus circa 20 high water events within the last 3 years. The last 3 being 21, 23 and 24 in April, which has never happened before. You may have seen our photographs. And the site's entrance onto Chelmer Village Way is the natural entry point for surface water runoff after torrential rain and was needed in August 21 and 22 when the level of water there went up 7 inches. See the EA map. It shows the entry gates as being the area for water entry.
Thank you.
Please refuse this permission.
Thank you very much. And we move on to Mike Parker, please.
Madam Chair, before I start, may I make some points of order and report some code of conduct violations, please, outside of my allotted time.
Mike, you have 2 minutes, so please use those 2 minutes.
Well, just so the public know you're not allowing me to make those. Right, the correct designation for the southern part of this site based on observation and the photographs that are all behind me here is functional floodplain 3B because it floods every year now, pretty much. In February I stood in the floodwaters and filmed a video explaining why this is a foolish place to build, the bund won't work and the suds will be underwater. The developer has misled this council with unrepresentative groundwater readings during the driest summer for decades. My analysis of hydrometric data shows that high cumulative inflows, or floods, have tripled since the 70s with no increase in rainfall, suggesting the cause is increased runoff. Published analysis by Hannaford reported that peak flows have increased across the country. The magnitude of this trend warrants investigation before this council considers building by or on floodplain. We're building our city at Chelmer's Ford, ever closer to the river, and our floodplain is cut in half by the A12, doubling the flood risk. And we've shown it holds water back in drone footage and video on the ground. And the floodwater doesn't even flow through the storm drain. You're holding back water towards the city and being complacent about the danger. Just 1 centimetre of rainfall over our catchment is 5.3 million cubic metres of water, over 2,000 Olympic swimming pools. And the Met Office are predicting 8 centimetres will become a regular occurrence. The biggest flood this century here was 19 million cubic metres over 7 days, but that's nothing compared to the floods we had in the 50s. Today, with more runoff and a floodplain half the size it was, a flood like that now will be devastating. The Borough Council designated this conservation area in 1991 and green wedge in 2008. We've been protecting this for decades. This proposal violates more policies than it complies with. Councillors, please err on the side of caution tonight and reject this reckless application, or will you reschedule this decision once planners have done due diligence by actually investigating the findings that I reported and so many residents have confirmed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, councillors. I refer to the transport assessment as in the original plans, document 8788441. And a quote from there from 5.10 that the signalised crossing of Chelmer Village Way is considered unjustifiable, right? It goes on to say that the peak traffic by 2028 will reach near maximum capacity. This crossing, right, will take down from 2 lanes each way to 2 lanes east, 1 lane west. Will divert water into the site at times of flood until we get a proper plan in place for the transport. We don't have one. The Essex County Council Transport Authority agreed to no such crossing. Thank you.
Normally, as John Hattett as Chair of Chelmer Village Council, I would have spoken, but because I'm Deputy Mayor this year, I'm not able to speak. So Councillor Byrne-McGrew is my Deputy Chair, and she's going to give you the Chelmer Village input.
Okay, thank you. I didn't sorry if I got it slightly wrong.
It's okay, I'm used to it. Having received unprecedented both formal and informal feedback from the residents of Chelmer Village and Chancellor Park, a comprehensive review by the Village Council's Planning Committee, objections were submitted to the city. The parish is essentially urban by nature, comprising housing fringed by industrial and retail businesses, and our residents have very little access to natural open space. The Water Meadows site is especially valuable for recreation, crisscrossed by public footpaths and riverbank access. Having studied the various comments made and the report submitted by the planning officer, Chelmer Village Council would like to draw your attention to the following reasons for the committee to refuse this application, which is not in the current local plan. Firstly, the area is a floodplain and does regularly flood. Councillors will recall the flooding following the recent named Storm Hink, where drone footage showed the entire application area underwater. This area protects Chelmsford from the more damaging and significant flooding elsewhere upstream of and adjacent to the meadows, which is its purpose. Large parts of our village area are low-lying and vulnerable. With climate change, floods are becoming more frequent. We are unconvinced by the data provided in the application regarding the strategic flood risk. The groundwater survey was taken in 2022 after a period of near drought and is not indicative of average norms and should be repeated. Secondly, Chelmsford's own policies for the green wedge do not permit development except for specific purposes. We accept one of those purposes, named is affordable housing, but this is limited by policy to small sites. The 55 homes planned are more than 4 times greater than allowed in policy DM2. This surely is a reason for rejection. This proposal devalues the quality of designated conservation areas, which is essentially rough pasture. The previous construction compound relating to the viaduct construction has been removed. The development diminishes the quality of the area. Residents enjoy the mature trees and ancient hedgerows that will be lost if this application goes ahead. The setting of the historic buildings is degraded as identified by Historic England submission, and it is nonsense to refer to the retail park for design comparison. The retail units are across a 4-lane road and no way affect people's perception of the meadows as rural. Additionally, Chelmer Village Council see no logical link between this application and the new country park in the area. Currently, our constituents enjoy all the benefits of a natural environment. The cost of a non-managed park will fall on the residents of Chelmer Village and Chancellor Park, and should only be considered as a separate planning application once the City Council decides to buy or otherwise take ownership of the land in question. A final significant reason to reject is the application to traffic congestion. At present, experience shows that the 183A traffic congestion from the Army and Navy junction queues back to the Chelmer Village Way in the rush hour and at weekends. Shoppers at the retail park cause round blocks. We suffer this daily, and the proposed new plan in no way mitigates the traffic congestion in this area. In conclusion, the Chelmer Village Council wishes to state its objections to the application in the strongest possible terms. We hope that the committee members agree and will vote against acceptance. Previous applications for this site have been refused. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
I've lived in the area of the Vauxhall Raven for 32 years now, so I've got some visual experience of what goes on there, and when it rains, what happens. And sustained rainfall is an incredible effect on the area just past the Vauxhall Raven, including the site that we're talking about. I too have seen it flooded substantially and taking quite a long time to disperse as well. And that, is happening, I would say, with more frequency. We've had instances, for example, in the past where animals, farm animals and horses were evacuated from the fields there. It was that serious to get them away from the flood. So it definitely happens. People tell me it's not on the floodplain. Geologically, that might be the definition, but I can tell you it does happen, and fairly regularly as well. I am very concerned, of course, but replacing what is a natural area, which has natural drainage, off of the road, etc., works pretty well. Replacing that with concrete, albeit probably designed to absorb water, can it actually take that much water and disperse it, and where does it go? I do worry about a lot of the displacement of that water affecting my residents' property beyond the new development. I'm also worried about the residents in the new development as well, because there is surface water that runs off of 2 major roads there, Chelmer Village Way and the A138. And I don't have confidence that, knowing the land there, and we've already seen this on the other side with the gas main being replaced, that has been delayed because of flooding. It backs up all the way up to that area. That could have a similar effect, going forward. it seems as though, we talk about housing crisis. I get it. I understand we need affordable homes, but we've also got a climate crisis as well, and that needs to be thought about when we're planning in these areas. We've seen horror stories from other parts of the country, and I would not like that to happen in Chelmsford, particularly in Chelmer Village. So I think we need to weigh up the risk here and the potential risk of climate change on this. Now I know, the proposal basically says that they've allowed for that margin with the bunds and the subs, but I'm not wholly confident of that. That will work. I'm not an expert, but having listened to the Warners who run the regulation of the water within the mill, I got a balanced opinion of how this would work, and I do fear the worst, unfortunately. And I don't necessarily agree with the fact that you weigh up the benefits and they outweigh the risks. Because I think if you've got risk like this, you should not be doing it. You should not be in this area. We do have a plan, and Chelmsford has been very good at putting together a plan and planning, and we have 5 years worth of developments that will include affordable homes. So I think we're in good shape as a council to meet the statutory requirements. So I don't accept that for this size of a development that we need to take the risk and add this to the portfolio. I'll quickly move on. Green wedge. Someone mentioned precedent, and green wedge is lovely because Chelmer Village Way formed a very nice barrier from the residential area in Chelmer Village, which we all enjoy, to the area that couldn't be developed and was subject to flood. It was a very natural way of demarcating the two areas. And I think that still stands, and the green wedge strengthened that. And the gentleman made the point about precedent, and that's the thing I'm worried about, because once you start chipping away at the green wedge, it was a great principle, people have defined what it is. If you start chipping away at that, that opens up the precedent for every other green wedge. I know we're only talking about this one, but it's there for a reason. It's a defined term, and it's there for a reason, and we should adhere to it and preserve it. It's a very good, strong, robust planning application, and it should be respected. What else can I say?
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, I will sum up. I'm not so sure. I need to know more information, but one thing I would recommend, I've had the benefit of seeing the water, the dynamics of the water in action, and the Warners would very, very much like to invite the planning committee, if you're in any doubt about this, to look at that, because it is crucial for you to understand the mechanics of it and how it works and the fears if it goes wrong. So I will leave it at that, but please take that on board, and please really carefully consider this proposal. And I'd like you to refuse it. I'd like you to refuse this on the basis of what everybody said. Thank you.
You should know that you've spoken off committee, so if you don't mind, like me, I left afterwards. Okay?
Come and sit up here with us.
We'll need you back later. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. It's good to see so many members of the public engaged in this very, very important application. Councillor and the ward member for Chelmer Village in Beauty Park. I've also been a resident of Chelmsford, was born here and been a resident of Chelmer Village since 2006. I wholeheartedly recommend that before determination, members do undertake a site visit and also accept the condemnation to see Barnes Mill in operation. And I understand there's a strict protocol for deciding this within the public forum of the planning committee, and that it will fall to the chair along with the proposer, a seconder, and then the committee to decide in public and to decide this through a vote. I would also ask members this evening to consider the implications of an updated National Flood Risk Assessment, or NAFRA, which is due to be published imminently in spring 2025, according to their website on Government Today, along with the National Coastal Erosion Risk Map. The revised data may have several significant implications for housing developments going forward. So we're looking at site selection, where developers may well need to be more cautious in selecting sites for new housing projects, and areas identified as high risk for flooding or coastal erosion may require even stricter regulations and may be deemed unsuitable for development. We're looking at design and construction standards too with regard to flood risk, and housing developments in areas with moderate flood risk may well need to incorporate enhanced design and construction standards. Planning permissions too may well be affected, and local planning authorities such as ours are going to potentially use updated data to make more informed decisions about granting planning permissions, given the impacts of climate change. And applications for developments in high-risk areas may face stricter scrutiny or be denied to ensure the community is safe and resilient. Insurance and financing is also pertinent, and the properties in high-risk areas may face higher insurance premiums or difficulties in obtaining financing. This could also influence developers and buyers' decisions, potentially reducing demand for housing in those specific areas. Finally, community resilience, which is the only positive I take from this projection of what we're going to see in the future, in that the data will help us as a community better understand our own flood risks and be able to take proactive measures to enhance resilience. This could include a community-wide flood defence or emergency planning and public awareness campaign. But overall, it's hoped that this new data will lead to more resilient and sustainable housing developments. I'm just sorry that the timing is such that you will not necessarily see this introduced before you determine the application, and this will be the pattern going forward, as we are, as Councillor Hall and others have stated, in the midst of climate change and increasingly turbulent conditions. Councillor Hall has covered very much about what I was wanting to speak. I would just like to look at green wedge, because this has come up and is pertinent to the local plan. You need to determine, members, whether the green wedge designation of potential for flooding outweighs the provision of affordable homes in this location, not least for the people who may be moving there to live, and certainly for the existing residents. 411 of our local plan states that the local plan will seek to reduce the risk to people and the development of natural environment from flooding by discouraging inappropriate development in areas at known risk from flooding. And that new development will be focused in areas where there is no or low risk of flooding. That is in our current local plan. Where this is not possible, then the sequential test will be applied as outlined in the National Planning Policy Framework, followed if necessary by the exception test, which I understand has been calculated. But new development should also ensure that it does not exacerbate or create flood risk elsewhere. It should demonstrate it will be safe for its lifetime. And the sequential test and exception test, where that's applicable, have been undertaken for local plan site allocations. And just finally, Chelmsford contains a number of rich and varied landscapes. This is in our local plan, and new development proposals will need to respect their character and appearance and their role for wildlife and increasing biodiversity. The river valleys, where they permeate into Chelmsford's urban area, have a unique role and function and are identified as green wedge for that reason. New development proposals will also need to respond to the character and appearance of the built environment, in particular to conserve or enhance the historic environment, focusing development at the higher order settlements outside the green belt, and must respect the existing development pattern and hierarchy of other settlements. Those words are taken from our current local plan, and I will leave you to reflect on that as you determine the application. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing your comments as we enter a constructive debate.